here today? Okay, I see that.
And some talent.
That's good. Then you're for me.
What is that?
That was my time's up signal or something. Okay. So I've been asked in the morning to not use a mic. So the recording is going to be fine, and I've been asked in the afternoon to use a mic, so the recording is going to be fine. Although in the morning I could have held a mic, and now I'm planning to do a live demo. So may or may not be able to hold a mic. So this is Drupal 8 multilingual site building hacks, and is kind of an experimental format for me, because I've already done a lot of presentations on how Drupal 8 multilingual is going to be amazing and it's going to change your life, with nice screenshots and videos. But that doesn't always work if the projector works. And then I did some workshop stuff on building things from scratch using the basic features. But the concept for this talk is to crazily combine all kinds of funky things in Drupal 8 in ways you may not have thought about. So this talk is ideal for you if you either haven't used Drupal 8 much or interested in some of the exotic things that may be possible with Drupal 8, including some multilingual things. But there's a lot of things to take away from this talk, even if you're not interested in multilingual at all, because we'll look at some crazy things in Drupal 8 that have been introduced, and you may enjoy them. So the primary thinking for me of this talk was for an audience who would not be able to install new modules on their site. So if sometime, maybe in the future, Drupal Gardens will be able to run Drupal 8 sites, then that would be the situation for the basic of this talk, where you don't have the ability to install modules, but you need some crazy stuff done, and maybe you don't want to use CSS to hide half of the page and stuff like that, but maybe you want to use the backend and actually only generate pages that make sense. And then the other half of the workshop will look at some crazy Drupal 8 modules that are beginnings of modules. They are not actually dumb things, so they are especially the experiment category that will show you possibilities of what further crazy things are possible with Drupal 8 multilingual. But first, who's already into the world of what's in Drupal 8 multilingual wise? Who knows Drupal 8's multilingual features? 2, 3, 4, not a lot? Okay. So this is a one-slide introduction to Drupal 8 multilingual. There is an hour-and-a-half introduction that's recorded from Christian that you should look at for the fact. But I hope that this will be like a very quick start for this session, and then we'll see how it goes. So if you know Drupal 7's multilingual features, then that circles around the locale module, which handles languages and interface translation. So in Drupal 8, we decided to split these to two modules called language and interface translation, because there's a lot of responsibilities that we've added to these modules. So if you look at the language capabilities in Drupal 8 core, that allows you to set up languages and a whole lot of other things that have not been possible in Drupal 7, like configuring block visibility per language, or assigning language to menu items, or assigning language to views, stuff like that, some pretty crazy stuff. So that's on its own. And if you want to run a site where you publish things in multiple languages, but they are not translations of each other, and you don't need interface translation, that this is the only module you would install. So if you like run a Google site for your library or something, and you need to manage a lot of documents in all kinds of languages, but they're never translations of each other, then you would use the language module to maintain information of language on things, but you don't need anything else. You want a search interface in a unified language. If you want the interface in multiple languages, then that's interface translation for you in Drupal 8. That is a lot of the visible features of locale moved to there. That got enriched with automated translation update features. So it's not only allowing you to translate the interface, but it also automates that process from the community, so you need to work less. That's kind of nice. And then there's the content translation module in Drupal 8, which has the same name that the Drupal 7 content translation module, but it's entirely different. It has nothing to do with the Drupal 7 content translation module. That is gone, it's dead. It may come back in Drupal Contrib if somebody has the time and interest. The reason we dropped it is we found that entity translation, although it had a lot of weaknesses in Drupal 7, is a lot more flexible than what Core had. So we brought entity translation into Core, renamed it to content translation. It sounds much nicer, much more user-friendly, and fixed a lot of the flaws. Some of the flaws are still there in the module, but fixed a lot of the flaws. So you don't need title module in here, and this applies to all kinds of things in Drupal 8. So it's much better, a lot more flexible, and you can almost reproduce the Drupal 7 behavior with content translation. We'll look at that a bit. And then there's config translation, which is kind of I18N and variable module, kind of, sort of, not really. So that I18N provides a lot of the features that now configuration translation provides, like translating views, translating, well, not views, but like it's integrated with translating views. Like translating block information, translating field labels and stuff like that. That's done in configuration translation. So the good news is Drupal 8 basically provides translations for everything in the system. The bad news is it has 3 systems to translate things. So interface translation is its own bucket, and content translation is its own bucket, and configuration translation is its own bucket. There's very little overlap between interface and config translation because there's some configuration that's already in the project, and that's translated both ways. But they are the same. They are separate buckets. So this is important for you. If you are a site builder, you will need to really know what's coming from where, and we'll get to that almost at the end of the session. Or you'll use a friendly module, either TMGMT or Lingotech, where they hide all this complexity from you, and you say send this block to translation, and then everything in the block, whether it comes from interface or content or config, will go to translation, and then you don't need to care about it. As long as those modules are unavailable or you don't want to use them, then you need to learn. So that's the basic system in Drupal 8 for language. And then all of these work with all the cool new things in Drupal 8. So the language plugs into all the cool new things, the content translation plugs into all the cool new things, etc. So one thing I wanted to notify you ahead is one of the things we said in our marketing talks earlier is that now you really can install in any language and you don't care about that anymore what you install in. Because in Drupal 7, if you've installed in Hungarian, then everything was assumed to be Hungarian, and then you tried to change language and then nothing worked. In Drupal 8, you install in Hungarian, and then everything is Hungarian, and you can change the language, and it will know that the things that you've installed are Hungarian. It will not magically change the things that you've installed. So if you want to remove the language that you've installed with, it's a very bad idea to try to install in that language, basically. So for this demo, we'll install in English, but if you install in some other language, totally fine. You just think about keeping that language for the duration of your exercise. So first thing I want to talk about the homepage problem, but let's install Drupal 8 first. So you can try install in simplytest.me, or you can try install locally. Anybody who does not have a local developer environment, it's easiest to use simplytest.me. The way you would do that is, let's use that, why not? What could break? So the way you would use simplytest.me is you visit simplytest.me and then you enter, you want to install Drupal 8.0.x and you launch Sandbox and then you get one for free. And this will be live for 24 hours. Which means hopefully until the end of this workshop. So it will last long enough, unless it horribly breaks, and then you reinstall it, but it's free. These companies pay for the server, good for us. And then you can install whatever language you want. I will pick English. Anybody needs help in your local environment, you want to set up a local environment, you want to go to this site, you don't need to follow installing anything, you can just enjoy it and relax and try to understand without doing it at the same time. That's also fine. But I'm happy to help anybody who needs support and runs into problems. After all, this is supposed to be a workshop. Not just me sitting here and installing things. So after spending the first half hour looking at this progress bar, we'll get a Drupal 8 site, and this time in English. And so we'll attack the homepage, the front page problem first. So one of the things we haven't gotten around to solving in Drupal 8, you can translate whatever you want, but those are translations. So it's still not possible to swap settings by language. So you cannot say that your site email address is different per language, or that your site logo is different per language, or that your front page is different per language. Those are not possible to configure. It is very easy to write a module that makes that possible. The configuration system has every power to support that, but we did not support that in Drupal 8 core because it becomes very complex very fast. Like if you need to swap the logo of the site, that means that here is it at appearance, right? So you go to appearance, and then to settings, global settings, and then you have your logo. And you can upload the logo, and then if we need to translate this, then we need to present a UI to swap this logo and do the same validations and support the same kind of file format. So it becomes very complex very fast. So what the configuration translation does is it deals with text. It will not deal with swapping settings that are not UI text. So it will not allow you to change the front page per language, but what we'll do is we'll enable the language module and do it anyway. So what the language module does, as I've said, is it allows you to configure languages and apply them to things, not even just to content, to a lot of things. So if you go to configure languages, but since I've installed English, I will have English. If you've installed in some other language, you will have that other language. So let's say I want to also have Hungarian here. And then let's say I want to also have some other language, German, etc. So now I have all these languages. So if I go to site information, I will still only be able to set this one front page. There's no UI for me to change this in any way that I want. However, another cool feature that language module provides is block visibility. And almost everything on this page is a block, including this main page block. So we'll look at that feature next. So now you have 3 languages on the site, and you want to have different front page for one or more multiple languages. Why do you want to do that? So usually when you build your site, you may not have the same level of support for different languages. Like 1 or 2 languages may be fully built out, and they have nice content, and they have user engagement and all kinds of things. And then you want to build out a couple more languages, but you probably don't have the resources to build them out the same capacity, the same extent that you did for the first or the second. So what you do is you set up 2 pages, and then you can watch whether there's actual traffic on there, and you can see whether it's worth it to build it out further. So let's say you want to keep this view for the default front page. It has whatever list of content you have, and you want to set up a page that says, hey, we are building this German thing, we are not done yet, but if you're interested, then contact us here and here and here. That's not possible in core because you cannot swipe out pages. So let's say you have your content in Hungarian or English or whatever by default. Let's create some English stuff. Now that I've installed in English, all my things will be English by default, so I can create however much English I want. And that will, of course, appear on the front page. And if I want to switch to other languages, I can add that language switcher block, that's block layout. And I will place language switcher in the header. Place the language switcher block. I don't want a title for that. And it's finding the header. So now I have this English content, and I can switch around my languages to Hungarian and to German. So what happens is the front page in Drupal 8 is a view that shows the list of content in that language and is filtered to content that was submitted in that language. So let's say you built out the English pages, they are fine, but you don't really have anything to say for Hungarian and German, and you want to say German some nice message instead of welcome to Drupal 8.1.x. You want to say something nice to them. The first thing you can do, of course, is you edit the view. And all the pages in Drupal 8 that are views, very easy to customize. So you can say you want to remove this empty node front page behavior that makes the add new content thing appear. And then you want to probably remove that ugly title as well. And you can enter something here for Germans. Now I will enter that in English. And then save it, and then that's kind of a sort of a solution for this. So if you need something richer than this and not just a text input, then that's where the block features come in. So let's say we don't need this stuff here, so we remove that as well, and now we get an empty canvas to work with. Here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a special message for our German friends. Say block layout. Now I want to place the block in the main content area. And a new thing that comes in Drupal 8 is custom blocks that are content entities, and there's this nice add custom block button here, and I can say all the things I want. And save this as a custom block, and then I can place the custom block so it only shows up for Germans. And I put that into the main content area. It should hopefully remember this by the time Drupal 8 is released. It does not. Remember that right now. And now what I get is the view and then the block. That's not very nice, right? So what I wanted to do here when I built out this hack is hide this crap, because who needs that crap on the front page when I put there something else. So what you would do in this case, of course, is you go to block layout and then you say, now that was the main page content block that the view used to display itself. So you say you configure the main page content block, and you don't want it to show on the front page. Because you have other things to do. So now, none of the languages will have a main page content block. But they do. So the problem is Drupal 8 is trying to be smarter than we are. And I would have broken Drupal if I removed the main page content block. But who stops somebody who's hacking around? We can hack around that one. So we don't want the main page content on the front page. That's going to be in inner pages, so I will say main page content inner pages. And then I have a German, we love German visitors front page thing, just so you recognize what's going on. And then now comes another great new feature of Drupal 8, block instances. I can place the same block any number of times I want. So I want a version of the main page content on the front page, if it's not German. So show for the list of pages, front, if it's not German. Right? So I get it there, which restored my block for other languages. So if I switch to Hungarian, well, it doesn't have any content, but if I switch to English, it actually shows the content. If I have German, I see that we love Germans. And if I go to Hungarian, there's nothing because I haven't configured anything for Hungarians. So there's a really rich set of block features that you can combine and reuse. It looks like very expensive to have multiple instances of blocks, but good news, Drupal 8 caches views and it caches blocks as well. So if you display view and it's in a block and it displays multiple times, it will be cached very well. No harm done. It can get out of control if you need this trick on multiple times. Now, if you really want to get rid of that feed thing on the front page for Germans, here, what you can do, because there's no block there, that's just Drupal adds that for you. So what you can do is you say, add yet one more main page content block. And place that in a different region. That we relegate the feed icon and stuff in a sidebar on the front page. And now I have 3 copies of main page content. I have one for the inner pages, which is always shown on the content. I have one for the things that are not German. And then I have one for German front page. Okay. So now you're sweating and you say, why the hell did you just install panels? Enter, there's no panels yet for Drupal 8. Also, if you only need this for 1 or 2 pages, why would you install panels? And also, why did you go to hack stop? If you don't want to hack around. So yeah, so that should mean that our German front page, nicely relegated this to here. We can give it a title that says our feed, whatever, consumer content, something, something. will almost appear nice, and then you have this special message for Germans. You have a very special empty page for all the Hungarians, and then you have this English that shows all the content. So the power of this is endless, because if you look at the blocks, it's a really surprising set of things that are blocks. Like your main navigation at the top of the page is a block, is placed as a block. The help text is placed as a block. The status messages is a block. The breadcrumbs are a block. So if you don't like the default breadcrumbs, you want to hide them, easy, etc. There's a lot of work going into making the rest of the things blocks. So for example, there's already a block available with the site name and the logo and the slogan, although this is currently not a block in itself. And then there's work going on to make the site, the page title and the tabs blocks. There's an RTVC issue for the tabs to move to blocks. So you can really do whatever you want. You can play around, like if you don't like tabs here, you want to move them up here because they are more visible there. In your theme, they look better at that place, etc. You can do that. So combining multiple block instances with custom blocks for certain cases, you can reproduce a very simple mini panel, very simple, well, not mini panels, but very simple panels kind of thing in Core without the hassle. Any questions on this one? How the hell did I come up with this crazy? Right. So, yeah. So you can really play around with all parts of the page basically, and use this for doing crazy things. So what we used here is the front page view itself, which we can hide mostly in terms of content by removing its empty content output. We use language visibility for hiding and showing blocks for different pages, and we use custom blocks to provide messages for languages that we wanted to provide different messages for. Ideally, we could have used, instead of tweaking the view, so like we used the front page view and the language visibility and custom blocks, ideally we could have just hidden the main page content and just use block instances to hide it on the front page and then replace it with something else. There's also an issue for that. I don't have the number handy, but it's being worked on as we speak. So that's basically due to Drupal trying to protect you from hiding a crucial part of the page. But it's a block and you want to hide it, then you should be able to hide it. Okay, so that's for the front page. Now let's look at menus. Menus are a very crazy animal in Drupal 8. Not that they are not crazy in Drupal 7. But let's say, so translating menu items in Drupal 8 is pretty straightforward. If you have a menu, you can translate all the items in there. It's not really difficult. But if you want to have different menus for different languages, that requires some thinking. So what we'll use for this is the blocks exposed by menus, language visibility again, and content type settings. So let's say we are here on the English page and we have this nice menu here with home and whatever else. Let's put some other fun thing in there, like, well, let's put contact module in there. I'm not entirely sure why it's not in there, but so this is our main navigation menu that shows up at the top of the page. If we edit that menu, we have this home link, and we can say we want to add the contact link as well. Right, which is going to move us to the contact page. Main navigation, we can arrange it later on. Of course, Drupal 8, slash, move it after home. Nice. So I have home and contact in all languages. Nice. So if I want to translate this, then I would want to enable the interface translation module for the home link and the content translation module for the contact link. So when I go to user interface translation, look for home, and I can translate it to whatever I want. So that's now saved into Hungarian. So I went to administration, configuration, regional language, translated it, searched for home and saved it, and then I go back. Then in Hungarian, should be home. Why is it hidden now?
Because you clear the caches and it's a bug.
Did
I don't know.
why did it get disabled?
That's the bug.
Oh, that's the bug, okay. Clears the menus on cache clearing when I enable the module. Okay, so it's translated in Hungarian. It's not translated in German. So I can translate it the same way in German. So the funky thing about menus is contact is I just created contact. So that's not part of the user interface, as in the user interface is always what comes with Drupal. So this is not part of what came with Drupal. It's something I created, so it's either going to be configuration or it's going to be content if it needs to be translated. So lucky us, it's content because I enabled that module. So what I'm going to do is I go to home administration, configuration, regional, and language, and enable menu items, custom menu links to be translated. So the beauty of the entity translation feature integrated in Drupal 8 is you can enable every single type of content separately, and their fields and their subfields and all kinds of things. So if I want to maintain a different menu link title and description, that's fine. I can save that, and now I can translate the menu item. And where do I translate it? Where I've edited the menu item. So I go here, there's home and contact is my menu item. I can translate it to Hungarian and German. So this is the point where you tear your hair apart and you say, I'm running to either TMGNT or Lingotech. Please help me figure this out because it's crazy. And yes, they all make a great business. So now I translated that as well. So in English, change the order, it's fun stuff. So now in English or in German that's contact and home because I haven't touched anything there. In English it's contact and home, and in Hungarian it's these two. So that's translating menus. So basically you'll need to keep in mind where the menu item comes from and translate it where it comes from. That's all it takes. Basically. It's not very complex when you think about it. When you actually need to do it, it's not easy. But it works. So now I fixed the order as well. Now let's look at the problem of swapping the menu for language. So let's say for Germans, I don't want to use this menu because I don't have that kind of rich content for them. So I want like a coming soon item or something for them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a menu for German pages, German menu language German, because I'm on the German user interface currently. I haven't installed or I haven't downloaded interface translation, so you actually understand what's going on. And then I can create whatever menu links I want here. I'm not going to use German words. So this one, each item can have its own language. And so what we do here is, so you have this for the other two cases, and you have German for the German menu for that case. So as I said before, these menus are displayed using blocks. So what you do here is you want to have the main navigation menu for Hungarian and English. Ta-da! And there's no menu for Germans, but there's still a menu for Hungarians. So I also want to place a block for Germans to the main, the primary menu. So all menus expose a block. So there's German menu automatically exposes a block. So I can place that block and show for Germans and hide the title. Now, this is what I have for Hungarians, and there's an entirely different menu for Germans. And then I can still keep translating the menu items. So the Hungarian is a translated version of the English. So I share a menu between English and Hungarian, and I have a totally separate menu for German. Again, thanks to block visibility, you basically can build an entirely different experience for a specific language. You can swap content, you can swap navigation, you can do all kinds of fun things. Any questions on this one? Any funky use cases that people have in mind for applying this to your sites? Anybody want to go to the boat party as soon as possible? No? That's so that's different menus. So I imagine that the multilingual workflow modules, TMGMT and LingoTech, will have a great time trying to support these use cases because they are all possible with core and they are all possible to set up. But to integrate the translation interfaces into some kind of workflow will be a challenge, although it will be required for people who don't have your understanding of the system based on what I explained. So let's do some content on the site. So let's say this is a product review site, and we actually want to provide some useful things for English and Hungarian after all, not just doing funky things. So we're going to do a product content type, and we're going to look at language settings on the product content type, and we're going to look at field level translation there as well. So Drupal comes with two content types, as it always have been. It's article and basic page. So if I want to actually manage products here, I can add the new product content type, and then probably agree to all of these settings. So why not? So if you create a new content type in Drupal 8, it's going to have a body field, nothing else. So if you want to add more fields, you can either reuse existing fields like images, tags, or you can create more. So let's say I want to reuse this image field for our product. And we want to use the title field, the alt field, to make the alt field required. And save that. And we also want to add a price field that's obviously not going to be translatable. So it's very easy to do. So I have a content type with a body field, an image field, and a price field. And now if I go and create content of that type, definitely not for the German audience, but let's say English. Go add content to product. I will, of course, get all of these fields. So all of my uploading goes well. If it goes well, I should have a product. Let's see if it went through. It did not. Okay. Yep. Did I? Thank you. So I actually uploaded a bigger file then. Then I've intended, yes. Yeah, much nicer. And that actually works. So, very easy to create content types. Of course, there's a lot more fields now in Drupal 8 that you can work with. There's entity references, there's all kinds of basic data types, there's state fields, etc. And now I want to actually be able to translate this and then take reviews on my products. So what I'm going to do is, instead of setting up translations on the screens where I actually set up the product, which would have been very tedious, I go to content, language, and translation, the same page that I went before. There's my content types, and there's product. So now, it's a lot more fields than what we had for our menus, right? So it's crazy how many fields content types maintain. So my product content type has a title field. It maintains who's the author, what's the publishing status, when it was authored, when it was last changed, whether it's promoted to the front page, whether it's sticky, whether the revision log message, the URL alias, the body field, the image field. Now the image field is subdivided into the file itself, the alt text, the title text, and the price. So when I want to translate this, now I have the opportunity to very fine-grained set this up. So I definitely don't want to translate the price. It's not going to sell for different amounts in different languages. It would be funky. The product is the same product across every language. I would not translate the file, of course. And then I can pick these ones as I want. So I can publish translations differently per language. So I can keep the Hungarian product translations separately published. I can use a different workflow for that. I can maintain the authoring information from translators, the dates, and the people. I can maintain these flags separately, which, by the way, should have been just Boolean fields. But, you know. So it's very easy to do these detailed setups. And as I've said, it's possible to reproduce the Drupal 7 behavior by checking every checkbox. If you check every checkbox, it works exactly the same way as Drupal 7 conceptually, because then it translates everything. It does not make a difference what field you're using. So this way, I now have a product content type that is perfectly translatable. So it has a translate tab that just appeared magically, and when I go to add the Hungarian translation to this product, it will show me the title, the body, and then the alternate text and the type, and the title of the image. And I can remove it, which will actually apply to all languages, hopefully, and then the price, which even says that it applies to all languages. So I can change it here. but it will change everything. You can play with permissions for this to allow people to see or not see these things. So I will translate this to Hungarian for you. Easy. So now I have a Hungarian translation of the product, and the alt text should be, of course, I'm sure the alt text should be Hungarian as well. There it is. So very easy to play around with these settings. You don't need to have any custom modules like 18 and sync or whatever else to be able to do this. So that's for your product. And now let's take reviews in multiple languages. So the trick around reviews is you want to take a rating with your reviews, and you want to maintain language information on your reviews. And you want to make it with Drupal core only. So what we're going to use for that is the translatable English language. Sounds funky, right? We'll use language settings on reviews, and we'll use comment types. Comment types, not content types, but comment. Comment? However you want to pronounce it. So you may have noticed that this content type does not take comments at all. There's no way to post reviews on the product. So the way Drupal 8 works is comments are a field on content types. And they have their own types. Who said Drupal 8 is not flexible? So you can add a field, and you can say you want to reuse the comment field from the other types, but that's not what we're going to do here. What we're going to do is we're going to create a review comment type. That's right. So a new comment type, we'll name it review. And the target entity type is going to be content. Notice that you can take comments on comments, different types of comments on comments. And we'll make the reviews to default to the current interface text language selected for the page. So what we're going to do here is we take reviews on content, and we set the language of the review to the language of the page being viewed. So people don't need to enter the language for the review, because we can infer that from the language of the page. That can be automated easily. And we're gonna attach reviews to products. So we'll say content type, product, manage fields, and we want to add reviews to products. So we take comments, and we make it so that it's reviews. And we attach that to the review comment type. We don't make it required, we open it, there's threading, whatever we want. Optional previews, it's nice. So now I can take the reviews on products, and the only thing I forgot is that to actually store the reviews. So let's go back to structure, comment types, and manage fields on reviews, and add a rating field. Add a number field on this. And this field, Ajax magic. Yes. No? You want to say something? I'm cheating. So integer list field, and that's going to be our rating. So what's going to happen is, not surprisingly, I hope, that people will be able to submit reviews on our products in multiple languages with ratings on a UI that actually makes it appear that they are posting reviews. So I have this product Hungarian. It's not appearing very nicely here. But there it says reviews, add new comments, so I can add this as script product. And then rate it for whatever. I haven't specified which one's better. And then my comment is posted, and it should appear right there. So although the layout is a bit funky, I don't know why, it works. The only thing that doesn't work is why the hell does it say add new comments when these are reviews, these are not comments. Who said comments, right? Not me. So what we're going to do about that one is we're going to swap the text out. So there's actually an issue to make this configurable. So we don't need to do the following hack, but we'll do the following hack so you learn. What we're going to do is we change add new comments to add the review. And we're going to use user interface translation. So add new comment. There it is in Hungarian, so I will say add review Hungarian. So what you'll notice then is if you go back, now if I watch this in Hungarian, then my add new comment suddenly changes to add review Hungarian. Of course, we'll not fix it for English, but who's gonna stop us fixing it for English? Drupal 8 is flexible. So we can go to languages, and English is apparently not translatable, but we can make it so. Enable interface translation to English. Now, Drupal, not flexible enough. We can change this add review or add new comment in English as well. Same place, use interface translation. Add new comment, but this time in English. We change it to add review. So the translatable English is quite a funny feature. I think can be used for a lot of things. Now if I switch back to the default English, then it will say add review. So can be used for a lot of things. One of the things my colleague Kevin O'Leary submitted a new language proposal for localized Drupal.org under the name Simplified English. And he's working very hard to basically figure out much simpler UI text for Drupal core. And you can practically swap out whatever text on the page you want with interface translation. So if you don't like something or you want to change the instructions given by Drupal on your site to your customers, even if your site is not multilingual, you don't need to be a multilingual site, you can use interface translation to English as a way to swap out whatever you want on the page, even if there's no alter function for it, it's not in the theme, I don't know what. This actually is in a tweak file somewhere, hard-coded, but again, there's an issue, somebody's working on it. I think Ruben reviewed it earlier today to change this feature to be configurable. So I think it's pretty flexible, isn't it? So in this hack, we used the flexibility of content types with making fields not translatable that don't make sense to be translatable and share cross translations. We've used the flexibility of comment types so that we can define our own type of comments and then take different fields on them. Then we can use the flexibility of translating English text to fix whatever is not configurable in Drupal core. Once again, this is your Drupal 8 multilingual hacks session. Anybody see a funky use of this or questions around this one? Yes.
When you submit a review, you have a message like your comment has been posted. Is that something you can also add?
So the question was, when you submit your review, it says your comment was posted, and is it something you can hack? Probably, yes. Let's check out the message. Sure. Yeah, I don't think that's something that we would not be able to swap. Why not? Ah. I overrode my... Yeah, that's here.
And the second one is like another hack suggestion. Is what happens if your product, you want to list it in a different currency without like using Drupal, only using Drupal.
The question was, can we solve if your product if for a different language is in a different currency, only using core? Yes, that's possible. Yes, that was a very good lead. I haven't thought about that one, but that's wow. You should have submitted that to the contest and win prizes. So yeah. So the question was, can we make this different per language if it has a different price per language? Yes, I think so. Let's try it out. So we want to make it different. So we want to make it translatable. So content, language, and translation. We want to make the price configurable or set or different per language. So that's good. So now in Hungarian I can say different price. You probably noticed the currency difference. That was too much money. Too handle. Was over the integer limit or what? So apparently it didn't change the display. I wonder if that's also something to do with caching. Probably. Caching. No. Yeah, that will work this time. So now it's in euros, so that's the problem. So what do we do about that one? So we can, of course, translate the suffix on the label, although I don't think that at this time is possible because Jennifer just opened an issue about that 2 days ago, but we can try and see. So the thing I'm looking for is it's a field on the product, the price field, and the price field itself, like fields themselves would be translatable so that, did I enable config translation at all? I did not, that makes sense. So fields themselves, field settings themselves should be translatable with configuration translation. And then I can swap the euro to other currencies in other languages in that field. So types again, product, manage fields, price, translate to Hungarian. There it is. So I can change it to Hungarian forints. So that's kind of cheating, but the whole session is cheating. So now it's probably cached again. Why not? Why not? Caching everything. So now I have a shortcut for it at least. So yeah, there it is. Done. Yeah. I haven't thought about that one. It's kind of, yeah, I don't know.
policy hide comments in the
Can you hide comments by language? So we haven't actually checked that they were actually submitted in the right language. Those kind of should have proven that one. Although there's no built-in way to check that unless it shows the language UI somewhere. But it will obviously show that. So I think it will hide language comments by default that do not belong to the current content language. So if we go to the same product in English, it's not going to show those comments there, or it does. That's a good question. So there's, I don't know of a configuration option for the display of these comments. Ideally, this would be a view that is a view of empty references that you can then manipulate. Ideally, that's unfortunately not the case. So, yes.
But you could do that. You could make a view and hide the comment display and
Yeah.
only display the comment form and have the view.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can definitely hide, globally you can hide the display for comments. So if you go to your display and you say you don't want to see those reviews at all, then you can hide that. But yeah, it doesn't have any settings for language. And display is not configurable per language.
You don't hide it and then put it in as a block.
Yeah, so you can totally hide this, you can create a block with views, and you can put it under the node, or you can put it in the sidebar, or you can do whatever you want. Yes. You can aggregate the reviews, or...
But if you make a block with the view, then how do you get only the edits out of it?
The new review?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, nice find. I don't know.
So, I mean, what would make sense if you could there on the display settings say whether you want to have the list or only the form.
Yeah, want to open an issue for that.
I know.
Or the comment form should be a different item here, yeah. It should say list of reviews as one display portion and add reviews another one, yeah. That would be also sensible, yeah. So when I was preparing for this talk, what I found is when you have these funky great ideas about how to do things, they usually work to 85%, and then the 15% at the end is like, I wish that one more setting had been added to Drupal 8. So that's the kind of thing that we'll see as it goes. One place where you don't need to wish is the content admin page. So the content admin page is also a view, this one. So you can modify it however you want. So by default it has this language drop down and has some information, but if you want to expand on what's available here, you can say go to structure views, and this is the content view, very confusingly named, I think, admin content. You can edit, and you can expose a lot more language settings. So you can say you want to be able to filter by translation status. That's not how it's called, whether the translation is outdated. And we're going to expose that, but if I would have clicked the expose button, then it would have failed, I can tell you. So we'll expose it later, and then we'll add the this should be fine. So the translation outdated, we'll expose it so that people can filter it themselves. And do not require it. And then we'll add more columns, so we can add the content translation, language, column, etc. So it's very easy to customize these views, even admin views, because you have all the flexibility. And now you'll have the translation language as information in the admin view, and you'll have a filter on true. You'll have a filter on translations, whether translation is outdated or not. Apply. Now if you go to the content page, you have a much more extended experience. You can filter for outdated translations, you can filter for translation language, etc. Types. I think it's pretty cool. I wanted to show another view thing, but I don't think we're gonna have the time for that. I want to move over to the funky contrib modules thing, because there's at least 3 funky contrib modules that I wanted to show. So that was the content admin example. We can customize a lot of the admin experience in Drupal 8 because a lot of the admin pages are views. We can tweak the exposed filters. We can even create admin view blocks. I have a use case for creating an admin view block that provided an overview for translators, and you can jump into this admin page from there. There's a lot of fun to be had there if you're interested. But I wanted to show quickly 3 contributed modules that are still very early stages for Drupal 8, but they show a lot of the flexibility that is not in core, but is highly enabled by Drupal core. So the first is sublanguage, which is actually language fallback module. So ethics here, he has a module called language fallback, and I ported that yesterday to Drupal 8, at least the 1.x branch to Drupal 8, and I called it sublanguage just so that it's easier to work with. So I will install a very quick site locally to show that. If you're interested in it, then the URL for that is, I have it up in the sandbox, and then ethics already committed it to the module. Yes, so we can look at that module. So it's project language fallback, and then there's the 8 branch you can check out from Git, or get from simplytest.me, or all kinds of other. We pushed this. So that's all the module. There's 2 files, a very complex module. So all it does is it enables you to have dependent languages in interface translation. So a lot of I often brought into discussions with clients at my company Acquia, and almost all of them have this problem of, hey, yes, okay, I have Spanish, but I actually have Spanish for the US and Spanish for Spain and Spanish. So how do I do that? And then the answer for that for Drupal 7 is either language fallback or language hierarchy. And the Drupal 8 answer is it's almost built into Drupal 8 core, but there is no UI. So this module is like 75 lines of code to implement the missing UI. So you can check it out from Git, from language_fallback, Drupal 8 version, or just enjoy the demo. So, or you have a situation where you want to have a formal language variant and a non-formal colloquial language variant for your stuff. So I have a copy of that here that's still called sublanguage because that's the working name I developed. And again, the 75 lines, I really hope it's going to get into Drupal 8.1. Will definitely not be in 8.0 because it's a new feature, user interface, etc. So let's say I have Hungarian. It's going to download all the Hungarian translations that the fantastic Hungarian community did. It's really outstanding work. And as with translations, we don't always agree on the text that should be on the page. As you've seen with the simple English example, that even English is not one language, it's multiple languages, or depending on how you want to display your interface. So Hungarian also you may disagree, or you may want to have site where you have organic groups and then you have very formal groups, and some groups are very colloquial, and the user interface will need to be different. So now I have Hungarian, it automatically downloads, by the way, automatically downloaded for me 6.4 thousand translations that the translators provided. And what happens then, of course, is if I watch the page in Hungarian, look at the page in Hungarian, then it will appear in Hungarian, all the menu items and everything. Because the translation team is awesome, and they translate all these things. So if I want to have a special Hungarian that says nice things, other nice things, like it doesn't say, what should we change this one? So let's say I'm going to change the text of this block in my special Hungarian language, then I want to add my special Hungarian language. So I'm going to add a custom language that Drupal does not know about. It's in Drupal 8 at the bottom of the page, it says custom language. That's going to be occurring right. So, in setting it up, it tries to download translation for this one because you never know, it may be available, it's not. So now I have Hungarian in my Hungarian, and it obviously doesn't have any translations, so if I try to use that one, it's AGU-AGU. It's going to appear completely in English. Yes, so there's nothing translated to Hungarian. So what's built into Drupal 8 but is not exposed in the user interface is that Drupal 8 can fall back between languages to other languages. So the sublanguage module adds this very little tiny feature here. So if you go to edit the language, it says interface translation fallback language, and you say you want this to fall back on Hungarian. I'm actually currently using the Hungarian UI, so sorry for that. Maybe harder to understand. So now I set up my Hungarian to fall back on Hungarian. Of course, why not? I need to clear my caches, because everything's cached. So if I would have tried to show it that it works, it's not going to work. But once I clear the cache, so this is the Hungarian stuff. It's obviously going to show up in Hungarian. But the Hungarian is also showing up in Hungarian. So this is AGU-AGU. Everything's in Hungarian the same way that's in Hungarian. And now I can customize only this language however I want. So there is no copying of translations made here. There's a runtime fallback. So if I go to my Hungarian, everything is untranslated. So if I want to do that Drupal-based website, something, then this is really not relevant here. Ha, there it is. So I can customize that. And now in my Hungarian, it will be different. Only this string will be different in my Hungarian. Everything else is as in Hungarian. And that's a 75-line module that only exposes the user interface, nothing else. And it can do this. So then it's very easy for you to create however many languages you want, and then depend them on each other. It's totally recursive, so I can set up even special my Hungarian that would fall back on my Hungarian that falls back on Hungarian. Totally works. And be happy with that. So that's only used for interface translation. There's also a default language fallback for content language display, and that's in the order of the languages shown. So Drupal core has a built-in language fallback for content display, and that is in the order of languages shown here. So you can reorder them and change that fallback order. Or, if you want, you can hack around all of those features in views again, because in views you can filter by source language, and then you can filter out certain languages that you never want to fall back on. I love views. They are great. They provide you all these features to build on all the data that we get into Drupal 8 core, so I think we are working together pretty well. Very funky module, localization client, is a module that there is available for Drupal 7. There is a very experimental, not actually working, but really nice for demos version of the module for Drupal 8, localization client. So we played around with design ideas for how to improve localization client. Everybody wanted in-place translation on the page. I'm looking at this menu, and that thing is coming from interface, but it's not translatable. I want to click in there and I want to translate it. And I kept saying it for 7 years that it's not possible, and then our designer designed an interface that made it possible. It's embarrassing, but that's how it is. So why not clear the cache again? Nobody was fired for clearing the cache, ever, unless the site goes down, rebuilding the cache. So now I'm in Hungarian, and the localization client, very experimental, not actually working, but very nice for demos. For Drupal 8, has a translate page thing here, and it cycles through the page and shows you the strings that appear on the page that are currently untranslated, and then it shows you a list of all the other things that were not recognized on the page, but were actually used on the page that you can translate or throw away. And you can use that to translate your Drupal site. So maybe the demo is better on the actual Hungarian, where there's actually more things. So it's using Joyride, the same plugin that the tool module uses. And then it goes through all the things that it finds on the page. So again, if the caching wouldn't be so aggressive, or if I would disable it in my settings PHP and not clear the cache all the time, then it would be a nicer demo. So it goes through all the things underlying the page where strings show up. They're not translated by the Hungarian team, so awesome. There's nothing found here. So it's 86% translated on this page, and there's only these like 5 strings that are not translated, and they were mostly not found on the page. So it's hopefully a much better user interface to translate things, where you can like filter down and dismiss things you're not interested in, etc. So that was localization client, and finally, Babel is another experimental project. So I told you that Drupal 8 has translation for everything, but you need to know what everything is. So Babel actually tells you what everything is. And shows you all that information. So when Drupal builds a page like this in our original site, then this block, for example, this would come from configuration translation, this would come from interface translation, and then all of these would come from interface translation, and then these would come mostly from content translation, except the labels, which come from configuration translation, etc. So you probably, let's take some time to get used to, or you probably can appreciate a tool that actually tells you about them. So Babel is another sandbox project of mine that actually looks at all the things that have been requested on the page, and it tells you what were the things that were used from interface translation, string by string, what were all the things that have been used from configuration translation, file by file, and what have all the things being requested from content translation. So if there's actual content on this page, they will also show you that. Let's throw in some content for that. So this is a good learning tool for you to figure out not just multilingual sites, but generally what the hell Drupal uses to build this page. Because it's not necessarily evident. Why is it that? I don't know. So I'm not going to demo content, I guess, unless.
Did you enable content translation?
I don't think that it did. So it was a dependency, but I don't think that's a requirement for it to recognize the that data. Anyway, so here, for example, on the front page, it tells you it used these interface strings and these config keys, and it even tells you whether they were found translated or they were not found translated. So it attempts to use the Hungarian version of the Bardic footer block, the Hungarian login block in Bardic, the Hungarian system site page, and it was not translated to Hungarian, so you can click on it and then it moves you to the page to translate the site information to Hungarian. You can actually enter it and get it done. And this page is trying to use the Hungarian language itself because it shows the Hungarian language, etc. So you can use this tool to figure out what Drupal uses to build your pages and then whether they are actually translated or not. And you can figure out where your gaps are in translating to Drupal 8. So these are three funky things with Drupal 8 that are, each of them are a couple hundred lines of code that are all experimental to show the new capabilities that are available with Drupal 8. This would be really nice to develop further a bit and make it more useful, like develop the develop module for themers, similar to that. So that was all the hacks that I wanted to show today. So the question is, if you have any questions or ideas or suggestions, like the price per language is very good. Nope. In that case,
Is there a way on the default content and the administer content page? Is there a way of making it easy to auto filter the exposed filter for language? So let's say you've got an English translator, another graphic translator, it can automatically go onto the filter for some content there.
so the question was how we get the language filter. Let's roll this thing. So how we get the language filter to automatically apply some kind of filter. There's actually all kinds of options here. So you can say that your German translator would land the German version of this admin page. So if you can assume that, then you can set up this view to always default to interface text language selected for the page. So it's an exposed filter for translation language, and you can say this should, this is my field, there's an exposed filter for translation language, and I can say default to interface text language selected for page, and apply, and then it will be selecting the interface language for the page, and then either your translators visit this page in the language that they are translating to, like on the actual German language, this one, Or you can set users to have a preference for administration language. So you can say, you want to have administrator language preferences for people, which is language detection and selection. You can enable account administration pages. That's account preference for administration pages. Save. And now users have the option to pick their administration language. So your translators would pick their language to something from the administration language. And then this will select the interface language for them. That was the first option in the priorities. So this will automatically select German for them if they prefer German, and they will show the German content because you made the view filter for German content. Yep.
So at the very beginning of the presentation, there was this topic like different front pages per language.
Yeah.
So in Drupal 7, you would use the variable module.
Yeah.
And maybe I missed it. How would you do that in Drupal 8?
So the front page setting is maintaining configuration. So this one.
Yeah.
Is maintained in the configuration system and deployed in the configuration system. So it entirely supports being overridden by whatever condition on Earth. So it can be overridden by time of day, or by language, or by organic group, or by whatever else. Drupal core does not have any built-in system to override this setting. But there can be any contributed module, including domain access module, for example, which is using the configuration override system to override the front page. So what I did instead, because Drupal core doesn't provide that feature, is think about what this actually does. So what this does is it decides what's going into the main page content on the front page, right? So that's what it sets up. So basically what it ends up in is your block layout main page content, this one. And then once you realize that it's only a setting for what's going to show in the main page content if it's the front page, then you can play around with the block however you want on the front page and hide it and move it to a different place, do whatever you want. And then basically you don't have that feature, but you have it anyway. And then it's not just the front page that you can swipe on whatever page you want, because at that point you can do path-based filtering and language-based filtering and role-based filtering and all kinds of things for your block, and then do very funky things with it. So I hope that you got a lot of tips for not just working on multilingual sites, but Drupal 8 in general. I also hope that it did not scare you that we used so many funky things from Drupal 8. But once you get a hang of it, that you have these block instances and custom block types and comment types and fieldable comments and translatable comments and language on menu items and swappable menu blocks and all these things and modifiable language ending pages, then you realize that Drupal 8 is going to be a pretty outstanding release for site builders. Because if you know the power in there, like, you can go very far. There are some not so nice things that we did, but after all, we've achieved a lot of things. Like we have different prices for language. We have languages that fall back on each other. We have menus that are translated and then swapped out for other languages and translatable front page blocks. And we provided a dashboard for translators to filter content. So we did a lot of things with almost only using contrib. So almost only using core. So the only contrib module that we actually built in was the sub-language module. The other two I just showed you that it will be good to diagnose and use. So let's take that away and build great sites with Drupal 8. Thank you. problem is that everything else you can configure on the field and on the type. So like the only suggestion I think is about here. So it would kind of work.